Ben McQuinney Outdoor Radio is brought to you by AnglersChoice.ca, the Angler's Choice in handmade soft plastics. Also presented to you by Handlebars Musky Lures, Zing the Bling, Frantic Big Game Baits, Keith's Trophy Fishing, Fish NV Guide Service, and Husky Musky Leaders. You're listening to Ben McQuinney Outdoor Radio. Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Ben McQuinney Outdoor Radio. My guest this evening is the president of the Berkley B1, Mr. Ben Wu. Ben, how are you doing tonight?
Hey Ben, first of all, I'm happy to be on the show, and I know we're off to a great start because you got a great name.
Well, great names, great minds, and fools seldom differ.
That's it.
So, the B1, Berkley B1 Tournament has just wrapped up, and you were the MC for the event, and you're also the president. And how many teams were involved this year?
Well, we're happy to announce, Ben, that this year was our biggest year ever. It happened to be our 5-year anniversary, so it's our 5th event. And every year we seem to grow, which is fantastic. This year we're proud to announce that we actually had 152 boats blast off on day one.
152 boats. That's fantastic. That is great. And I don't want to misspeak, but Robinson and Craig, help me out here. the guys that won it this year.
Yep, Mark Robinson and Mark Hamlin.
Yeah, Mark Hamlin and Mark Robinson. Mark and Mark.
Mark and Mark. We call them M2.
M2. Yeah. So, what was the grand prize again?
Well, every year we've kind of upped the ante.
Mm-hmm.
If I go back to 2009, the grand prize is like a $20,000 check, which is, phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, we've upgraded a couple of times. We went from cash money to two 250 horsepower motors to a fully rigged boat. This year, we're really fortunate to get Ranger boats on board, along with Thomas Marine Group as well as Mercury and a couple other great partners. And as a grand prize, we were able to offer the winners a brand new 2013 Ranger Z118 twin console 18.5-foot bass boat powered by a Mercury 150 horsepower 4-stroke motor.
Whoa. That's got some power underneath the hood, doesn't it?
I'll tell you what makes that so interesting is, and don't quote me on this, but I'm willing to place a bet that I don't think there's another event out there where you can walk up, the registration fee is $600 per team,
mm-hmm.
okay, and it's a 2-day format, and I'm not sure if there's another event that has that type of payback as far as such a grand prize for just $600 of entrance fee.
Mm-hmm. And it's a Canadian tournament. It's one of Canada's.
We're known as the Canadian Bass Open. Now that's not to say, Ben, that we don't have competitors that come from all over. I mean, we do have a few American teams that come up. This year, what made it interesting is above and beyond the fact that we draw, competitors from 5 different provinces, be it, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Quebec, Ontario, and even Alberta. We actually had a team compete all the way from France, if you could believe that.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. That's a good, that tournament's well covered then, if you're drawing a crowd from Europe.
I like to think that, that we're doing a good job by putting up a premium event. And, above and beyond just the huge prize as a draw, I like to think that, there's something about the B1. It's at the end of the year. It's really a gathering of the best, that one time a year where, like-minded individuals and those who share the same passion get together and duke it out, that one, finale. We have a lot of great events in Canada, and, we're really happy about that. And the Canadian bass fishing scene is thriving. But, we're really proud of the fact that the B1 can draw individuals and competitors from all over. And, we're happy to say that, we're that one event that really covers multiple provinces when it comes to participation.
Yeah, Alberta, Manitoba, BC, Ontario, Quebec,
Not yet. I'm calling. So if anybody's listening from BC, we certainly love to help you get here. If there's any bass anglers from BC that want to come down to the B1 event, that's the only province we haven't had, any competitors come from yet.
There you go. So, Ben, I always watch Fishing Canada, and it's a great show, and I always look forward to your little segment there, because you're just this little plethora of good insight. And one of the topics that one of our listeners wanted to touch on was the Asian carp invasion. Do you have any information on that you can share that you've heard in the winds?
I did recently to have the opportunity. I mean, at the B1, we were actually working side by side in a big collaboration with the Ministry of Natural Resources here in Quebec. We can go into that a little bit more later, but one of the head biologists actually shared some information with me where they're actually working with also the federal biologists, especially in the lower St. Lawrence Seaway, closer to Lake Erie. And I mean, they are doing everything they can to keep, the spread of Asian carp, to go throughout. The challenge that they have is just the reproductive rate. It's just so astronomical that it's really hard to pinpoint, or come with any solutions in the short term.
Yeah.
Or the long term, for that matter. So unfortunately, I don't have any more information than the next guy. All I do know is, from the source, that it is a number one priority right now for our biologists.
That's fantastic to know that our Canadian oceans and fisheries are on top of this problem, because it is a big issue. It will actually destroy our freshwater system.
Well, make no mistake. When I say biologists, I mean the Ontario MNR alongside the Quebec, as well as some from the U.S. and the federal fisheries and oceans biologists. I mean, they're all on it, and we have to put trust in them, and that they can figure something out, because certainly it's not something we want to spread.
No, absolutely not. New technology. What's out there right now, Ben? I know you always have your ear to the ground when it comes to new technology.
I'll tell you what, just talking to some of the competitors this weekend at the B1, a couple of things came to mind. 3 years ago, I would argue that not even 15 to 20% of the B1 field even had shallow water anchors. And by that I mean either, a power pole system or the Minn Kota Talon system. Over 80% of the field this year had some sort of shallow water anchor system. And I remember when that came out, everybody's like, oh, it's a toy, it's just an accessory. As far as I'm concerned, it is an absolute mandatory tool to have on your fishing rig.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. You get into some of those tight quarters where some of those larger fish like to hide, and if you can't maintain boat control because of tailwind or nose wind, the next best thing is to just drop anchor and hold yourself in that position so that you can target those fish.
Well, especially on a body of water like Lake St. Francis, which, as you know, is part of the St. Lawrence Seaway, you're dealing with a lot of various conditions, one of them being currents.
Yeah.
And historically speaking, the B1's been one shallow, but it's also been one deep, depending on the weather conditions leading up to the event. And knowing this going in, the competitors have no choice but to cover both aspects. So they got to pre-fish for a shallow bite, but they also got to pre-fish for a deep bite, because you never know the type of weather that you're going to get. At this particular B1, some of the dock talk that was going on, one tool that really helped guys nail down their deeper water drifts was something called Structure Map from Lowrance.
Yes.
I'm sure if you've heard of this new feature in the new HDS units, but basically it's like combining your down scan and structure scan and overlaying it on your chart. So you can actually put into memory your drift, for example, because a lot of guys are drifting, tubes, Carolina rigs, and that type of stuff. But they're actually structure scanning as they drift, and while they're doing that, they're actually marking it, overlaying it onto their map.
Yep.
So after a while, you're going to have all these drifts that you actually not only know what the direction or the speed that you're drifting, but you also have an image capture of what type of bottom it is that you're drifting on. So I think that's one technology that certainly came into play this last V1.
That's awesome. I saw it launched this year at ICAST, and it is definitely a new tool that competitive bass anglers and competitive walleye anglers can fine-tune their equipment and, have that resource on hand to give them that extra edge.
Yeah, no doubt.
So, Berkley, I saw some of the goodies. Anything new from Berkley that people need to get their hands on this coming season?
Well, I'll tell you what, Ben, a cool thing about being the guy behind the B1 is that the guy behind the B1 gets to play with all these toys that Garcia and all these other companies come out with. You might get a sneak peek of them at ICAST, but Berkley Canada makes it a point to unveil them at the B1 so that all the competitors can actually play with them and, touch and feel them and all that stuff right at the angler meeting. As you know, we have a big angler meeting on the Friday before the event starts where we draw the numbers and go over the rules and all that stuff. But it's become kind of like a gathering, and we have booths there and there's all kinds of stuff to buy, last-minute stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
What Berkley and Abu Garcia came out with back at ICAST in the summer, they actually brought one of the most exciting items that they brought was the new Revo Rocket, which is a bait cast reel, part of the Revo lineup that they've become popular for. Mm-hmm. But it's different. First of all, it's red, so you'll notice it right away from the pack. But the most interesting feature on this new reel is its gear ratio. It's called the Rocket for a reason. We're talking a 9-to-1 gear ratio.
What?
Oh, yeah.
Huh.
This thing, I mean, it's like four. I can't even. I don't know what the units of measure or whatnot. All I know is that I tried casting this thing, and within 4 revolutions from a cast, that lure was back, ready to cast again.
Wow.
Imagine the application of that. Let's say you're flipping docks.
Yeah.
A lot of the times you're flipping this type of shallow structure, the strike zone is so short. You put it in there, bam, 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 it's not ready to go. You want that bait right back so you can make another cast.
That's
for
right.
Applications where you have to do multiple casts in specific structure, I think the Rocket Revo is just going to come in fabulously. Another great feature is deep water. A lot of guys drop shot in deeper water for fish. Well, the problem with the drop shotting is sometimes the fish outrun your reel, especially if you're using spinning reels. And one of the trends that I see coming up from the B1 is a lot of guys start drop shotting with big cast reels. And at first I wondered why. But now what I've come to realize is that the guys are using high-speed reels to drop shot deep water so that, when you hook that fish is coming straight up.
Yeah.
The spinning reel, the ratio is just too slow compared to one of these higher-speed, bait cast reels. So imagine a Rocket Revo in that application where, if you've got a 9-to-1 gear ratio, you're definitely beating that fish to the boat.
Exactly. Yeah, if it's not the good hook set that brings them up a couple feet, it's definitely the Revo Rocket. Well, I'll be looking for that come the spring at some of the dealer booths.
It's going to be available in stores, I think, in the next month.
Oh, wow, perfect. There we go. I don't have to wait till the spring.
I'll tell you another cool one, Ben, and I know I had a sidebar conversation with Bob Izumi, and Bob had a fantastic pre-fish. I mean, he was tweeting some of those pigs that he was catching. He got like a 6.4 in practice, and he didn't want to mention what he was catching them on. At the show, he mentioned, and I'm going to share with your listeners, the Havoc lineup of baits from Berkley has been an absolute success. It's a lower price point. There's no scent. There's no salt. It's just, great plastic bait.
It's just a plastic bait. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's designed by the pros, the Iconellis and the Skeet Reeses and whatnot. Well, Iconelli just came out with a brand new Havoc bait, and it's called the Flat Dog. And what it is, essentially, it's kind of like a Cinco-style bait where it's like a do-nothing kind of worm.
Yep.
But it's got a little bit more of a flatter profile to it, and it's got some dots on it. And basically what Iconelli says is that it actually makes it have a more interesting quiver as it falls naturally. And, that's fantastic because we've always wanted, some type of do-nothing type of worm bait, and now we have it. But what's even more interesting than that is what Bob Izumi was doing with this bait. I pulled him on the side. I said, Bob, I know you're catching them on a new bait. What were you doing? And basically he said, I took that Flat Dog and I was drop shotting in 30 foot of water. And he goes, the way that Flat Dog catches the current just looks so much like a goby or a bait fish down there. He was getting all his bites on that. So that's a new bait that's coming out. It's probably out in the next month or so.
I'm just about to post it on Twitter. I'm looking at it now. It is definitely a different take on the Senko. It's quite textured. It's tapered pretty much at both ends, and I could see how that would move in a different way than your typical Senko's.
Yeah, because of the shape, it just captures the water a little bit different. I mean, it has all the properties of the Senko. It's a do-nothing. It quivers, it falls. It's heavy. It's packed with salt, so it has that, sinking rate. But just the way that it's shaped, it gives the fish something a little bit different to look at, and sometimes that's all it takes, as you know.
Any unsung heroes at the B1 this year?
Any unsung heroes? Yeah, I could definitely point out a few, other than the guys who won, being Mark Hamill and Mark Rockets. I mean, just a quick thing about them. These guys worked really hard. Last year they came in second place at the B1. They went on and won, actually came in second place at the Renegade Bass Classic about 2 weeks ago as well. So they've been the bridesmaid like 2 times. It was really satisfying for them to finally take the reins and take it and bring it home with the winning weight. But unsung heroes, I mean, Mike DeForge came in with a monster bag on day one. Mike DeForge is no stranger to the bass circuit. He's won, numerous events. And, he came with a 24 and some odd pound bag. And I went out there on day 2 with some of our media crew. And just watching this man and his partner, Jay McCormick's fish, was an absolute treat. I mean, this guy's a robot. The way he works his jerk baits and the way he casts it is unbelievable. And it's a reminder of what level these guys perform and fish at. Mike DeForge is definitely someone I want to point out. Another kid I want to point out is Remy Lauren. He's the 21-year-old up-and-comer from Quebec. He just won his local classic, 2 weeks before the B1. He's on fire. 21 years old. He came in with the top 10 finish on day 1 of the B1, which really, got him into the spotlight. And last but not least, I want to point out the Johnson brothers. You Ontario guys listening, you guys know the Johnson brothers, Corey and Chris. These guys have been wiping up the Southern Ontario bass trails, whether it's on Simcoe or Sturgeon or Lake Erie or whatnot. They showed up at the B1 for the first time ever, and wouldn't you know it, they did a top 10.
Awesome. What's I'm trying new accessories, tools of the trade, if you will. Anything new from Berkley?
Accessories. I don't have, maybe not from Berkley, but there was one item that popped up right before the B1, and everybody just absolutely jumped on it. We're sponsored. We have a sponsor by the name of Extreme Jigs. They're a local Quebec handmade lure company, and there's many of these great companies in Canada. These guys have a category called Extreme Jigs, and what they do is they specialize in tube jig heads and shaky heads and all that type of stuff. And one of the things they just unveiled right before the event, and all the guys just absolutely just pounced on them and just emptied them of it, is a new skinny tube jig. I invite your listeners to take a look at baits-lures.com. It's called Extreme Jig. They've got this new tube jig, and it is a 3/4 ounce weight, and that's what you need in a lot of these, heavy current, deeper water kind of bites, if you want to drag bottom or whatnot. But this new skinny tube jig is made with a 4/0 gamma casting, which is razor sharp. But the way they designed, the way the lead lies on the shank of the hook, really, it's really genius, because now you don't have to deform your tube. A lot of these heavier weights, especially when you get into the half ounce or the 3/4 ounce, they start deforming your tube. This one here does not deform your tube whatsoever, and it literally is called a skinny tube jig. That was probably the hottest, terminal tackle or accessory item, at the B1.
Guys were all over it. You know why? Because it's Canadian. Right? There we go. Extreme Jigs. Folks, you can check those out at baits-lures.com. Yeah.
Awesome tube jig. I just threw some of those today, and man, they were smoking them.
So, moving on, because like I said, your segments, I figure if I can get you on the show, which I'm very happy to have you, I would get some of these little tidbits.
Are you kidding me? Getting me to talk about fishing? Man, that must be hard.
Boat care. What can you offer up our listeners for boat care?
Well, when it comes to boat care, there's only really one product that I would recommend, and that's Bass Boat Saver. If you've heard of this product, it's kind of been under the radar for a while, and all the guys that take care of their boat pretty much use uniquely this product. It's total protection for your boat. It's basically, it cleans, it waxes, the UV sun protects. BassBoatSaver.com, Radio World provided a whole slew of them for all the guys to try out. I've been using it for a couple of years now, and it absolutely protects. You know, when you get to the end of the day, especially those hot days where you get all the dry weed on your boat?
Yeah.
Well, you put this coat down before you get out there, and I tell you, you can rub that off with a finger. You know, it's not going to stick on because it just has this, like, layer of protection on it. But if you want to talk about something new, Bass Boat Saver came out with a new product called Screen Cleaner. And it actually cleans and it protects your screens. And me, I run HDS touches, right? I got a 12 on the helm and a 9 up front. And, you know, when you're largemouth fishing or fishing in general, you're just going to get slop all over your screens. It happens.
Yep.
One shot of that, bam, gone. Phenomenal stuff, I got to tell you.
Well, and that's the other thing, too. I've always told people, if you're going to clean your screen, just get a nice little spray bottle of just water and use a microfiber cloth, because you don't want to, you know, transfer the oils of your hand or whatever on the screen. And here's products like you were saying, Screensaver, coming out and taking the guesswork out of it. Because they can be cleaned. I know after my buddy Keith, after a hard season of muskie fishing, you could almost peel the slime off his screen.
No, and you know what, the microfiber towel deal is an absolute must. The cool thing about the Screen Cleaner product is that it actually repels dust once you spray it.
Ah, so it's almost like kind of like a hydrophobic or oilophobic kind of.
Not so much for the water, but for the dust. You know, the screens get all dusty. And
yeah.
Yeah, it actually gives it like a little, you know, automatic protection on there.
Excellent, excellent. Well, folks, my special guest, Ben Wu, president of the Berkley B1. And, folks, next year, it comes up faster than you can shake a stick. And like Ben said, it's only a...
Ben, while I have the
yeah.
opportunity to address your listeners, you know, I cordially invite all, you know, bass enthusiasts or any fan of tournament fishing to give it a shot. Sign up for the Berkley B1. I mean, you get an opportunity to fish side by side against the best, whether it's Bob Azumi or Pete Bowman or, you know, Mike Dayforge or the Johnson brothers or whoever it may be. Here's an opportunity where you can get up right next to them and throw your hat into a fantastic fishery. You know, it normally takes, I mean, just to give you an idea, Ben, the fishing was so fantabulous on day one. It took 19 pounds just to break the top 25.
Wow.
Talking a healthy fishery.
Yep.
Smallmouth bass, largemouth bass. The lunker of the event wasn't even a smallmouth. It was a 6.3 largemouth.
Oh, there you go. Nice.
So,
nice.
I mean, if you're a fan of that, BerkleyB1.com, you know, if you just want to check out the event or learn more, we've got 5 years of archived photos, videos, and all types of stuff on there. It's only $600 to register. One thing I do need to make everybody aware of is that our registration fills up super quick. Traditionally, we open up registrations in the month of January. We're looking to actually maybe do that a little bit earlier this year, but I'm sure Ben will have that on his website or on his Facebook page, or check me out. I'm on Facebook as well. Add me.
Yes, add Ben Wu.
Yeah, add me.
Ben, I just want to give a plug out also to you also have a clothing line, correct?
I do, yes.
And it's Wu Do Custom Apparel. And folks, if you need a jersey, give Ben a call, and he can get you set up with some killer threads.
I'll tell you what, we are a small company. You know, it's a sideline business for me, my partner Sheldon Hatch. You know, we don't punch out a ton of shirts. You know, we are also not the fastest. You know, we're not known to be fast, but I'll tell you what, we're known to be the hottest looking jersey. I mean, all our jerseys are handmade right here in Canada. The only thing is, you know, make sure you order it in time. Don't call us up for a jersey if you need it in 3 weeks. We're not going to get it to you. But, you know, in the off season, you know, November through February, it'd be our pleasure to work with you and design something that's unique to you and custom to you. WoodooCustoms.com if you want more info.
There you go, Voodoo Customs. There you go, Dave. Dave. Oh my gosh, I got so many people on my brain tonight. Ben, it's been a pleasure. I look forward to running India in the spring, and I'll have to give you my jersey design so I can show up to the show in proper apparel this year.
There you go. Let me tip you up properly.
There we go. All right, folks. Ben Wu, special guest, president of the B1 Berkley series, and right here on Ben McQuinney Outdoor Radio.
We are Rob and you're on the water with the Bassasins. We get asked, how do you know the tactic you're using is right, especially on slower days, and not end up wasting your time by throwing your entire tackle box at every spot that looks like it holds fish?
Confidence is key when fishing. You must have confidence in what you do. Confidence that each cast you make will potentially have a fish on it. Be confident that the retrieve will get a hit. When you remove confidence, you take away from the natural presentation of the lure. By either reeling too fast, not giving the bait enough time to sit, not pausing in between twitches, basically you're scrambling.
When we arrive on the water, especially new water, we always have a plan for the area and structure we are fishing, based on research and past experience. We bring the 2, maybe 3 tactics we are confident will work. We throw them all day long, no matter what, with confidence. You may be casting to the right spots and using the right bait, but if you don't have confidence or lose it throughout the day, maybe that is the lacking key, which makes for a less productive day on the water.
So find your go-to bait and stick with it. However, if you want to try something new, bring it. Fish the heck out of it, just to see if it's worth adding to your arsenal or not. Experience will help you gain that confidence. Just something to think about it next time when you hit the water, especially on a tough day. You are going to catch fish, because confidence is the only weapon that you need.
So next time on the water with the Bassasins, right here on Ben McQuinney Outdoors, tight lines.
Ben McQuinney Outdoor Radio is brought to you by AnglersChoice.ca, Angler's Choice handmade soft plastics. Also presented to you by Handlebars Musky Lures, Zing the Bling, Frantic Big Game Baits, Keith's Trophy Fishing, Fish NV Guide Service, and Husky Musky Leaders. You're listening to Ben McQuinney Outdoor Radio. Hey folks, if you like what you hear on Ben McQuinney Outdoor Radio, be sure to drop us a line at benmcquinney@yahoo.com. Folks, welcome back to Ben McQuinney Outdoor Radio. I'm your host, Ben McQuinney. My next guest, we've heard from him before. He's a Berkley Canada Ambassador, and he was also part of the conservation side of things at the recent Berkley B1 Tournament. My next guest is Jason Barnucz. Jason, how you doing?
Great, Ben. Glad to be back on the podcast.
So, how was it? How was the B1?
It was a pretty epic event. I'm sure you've already been chatting with Ben Wu, who's the main organizer of the Berkley B1. Told me I was going to be impressed when I got there, and I really was. It was an impressive event from start to finish.
Well, we had discussed that it was the largest turnout in history, being its 5th year of circulation.
Absolutely. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think it was just over 150 teams, so 300 plus anglers from all across Quebec and Ontario. And, it really didn't hit home to me, Ben, until I was at the anglers meeting on Friday night. And we were in this ballroom at the Royal Hotel in Salaberry. And it was just packed with a real who's who of anglers from across both provinces, and even beyond that. Mark Weir was there from Nova Scotia. So, yeah, it was really, really impressive to see that and be able to stand in front of that group of anglers. And, as much as I had to say a few words to them about conservation and fish care, I was really taken back by the moment for sure.
Awesome. Now, you worked hand in hand with the Quebec version of our Ministry of Natural Resources, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So when Ben and I were talking about the event, and we were looking at setting up our own live release system for the Berkley B1, and that would be the first time that we would have been able to do something like that. We went from my background. I said to Ben, I said, we should probably get involved with the province of Quebec staff. And the province of Quebec came forward, and they saw the Berkley B1 as a real exceptional opportunity to basically collect information about smallmouth bass from Lake St. Francis. And, you know, it's been studied before that if you want to learn about bass, the best way to get a sample, a large sample size, which all researchers want a large sample size, is to go to a bass tournament. and because as much as we all have bad days of bass fishing at a tournament, someone always catches bass. And for sure, there was lots of bass caught at the Berkley B1. So the province of Quebec, their actual ministry is called the Resources Naturelles et Fauna, so our equivalent of the Ministry of Natural Resources, and they jumped at the chance to team up with the Berkley B1 to get some important fisheries data for Lake St. Francis.
Awesome. Now, working with the biologist, Ben had kind of led into, I guess there was some talk of the Asian carp crisis that our Canadian waters face. Now, did you collect any other information on that?
No, that didn't come up in discussion. I'll be honest, I did have some chats with the biologists and technicians that were there from Quebec, but we mostly worked together as a team. There were so many bass brought in to the event. We were kept really busy. First day of the event on the Saturday, we probably spent around 2 or 3 hours setting up. And I won't lie to you, the last few fish we released were by flashlight. It was well into the dark before we let our last bass go because we wanted to make sure they all went back as healthy as possible. And it was a similar story on Sunday. So, you know, we would arrive at the weigh-in site around noon. Weigh-in would start at 3, and we'd be there until 8 o'clock both nights.
Wow.
Very big event. Lots of fish caught. That's the take-home message. Lots of fish were caught, and so many fish went back. It was a very good success on both the Berkley B1 staff and, you know, I was the director of conservation, and it was great to work with the province of Quebec, and they were really happy with the result as well.
Awesome. Now, in the process of putting the fish back, what kind of things were you and the other biologists doing? Taking scale samples, measuring, weighing, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so actually what we were doing was, it was a really bit of a unique twist. So traditionally, for those of your listeners that have been to a bass tournament and have watched some of the research that may go on at a bass tournament, you'll see some of the biologists who come out from different agencies, and they might do length of the fish and weight of the fish, and might tag the fish. We didn't actually do any tagging there. We didn't do any scale samples there. What we did do, though, was we worked on a study to look at the impacts of fizzing on bass. And so a large number of the fish that came in to the tournament, I'm guessing a little over 50% of the fish required fizzing. And fizzing, for your listeners, is so what fish go through coming from deep water is referred to as barotrauma. And barotrauma is an industry word describing the overinflation of the air bladder. When you bring a fish from depth, it can't adjust to the pressure change very easily. Its air bladder will expand, and when it's distended inside the body cavity, it can cause stress to the fish on the internal organs. Also, the fish is not unable to swim back down, and until the air is released, that fish is going to be in a state of stress. So, obviously, though, the other side of the coin is fizzing. Fizzing involves using a needle to deflate the air bladder. You're not deflating it entirely. You want to return that fish back to a state of equilibrium so it can swim again. Fish need air in their air bladder to swim up and down in the water column to adjust, basically to help adjust their location. And if we deflate them too much, they're unable to swim properly. So it's a bit of a careful procedure, but obviously, and your listeners and yourself as well, you know that it's becoming more and more of a topic especially in smallmouth waters in northern latitudes where this happens quite a bit. So the province of Quebec wanted to do a study on that. So what we did was I fizzed 30 or 40 fish from a subsample of the fish that came in. Those fish were then taken to a holding pen that we had constructed actually in the river adjacent to the weigh-in site. And then we went ahead and we took another 30 or 40 fish, another subsample of the fish that came in, and we did not fizz those. Mm-hmm. Those fish were left unfizzed. All the fish from the two samples were measured for length, and they were also pit tagged. With a pit tag is a small magnetic tag that goes under the skin of the fish. It's about the size of a grain of rice, and it gives each fish a unique identifier. So we know for each of those fish, was it fizzed or not fizzed? You know, what condition did it come in when it arrived? And what they were going to do was they were going to take those fish to a large holding tank that they own, and they were going to observe those fish for, I believe, up to a week to see how they fared after that time. And then I do believe after that, some of those fish were going to be tagged and released for long-term tracking as well. This is the first time the province of Quebec that I'm aware of has been involved in a study of this kind, and they want to do more of this in the future. And so I think it just helped give the event a lot of notoriety and credibility, having those staff there and having the staff support the event. It was great.
Awesome. So I know it's over the radio waves, and it's hard to give a visual description, but could you, for our listeners, give us your best visual description of how fizzing works and how it's performed on a bass?
Sure. What I like to do, and there's different techniques out there, you'll hear guys fizzing through the mouth, which is a technique that has been used in the U.S., but there's been some research done on this where it suggested that it may work better on largemouth bass than smallmouth bass. For most of the fishing that we do in Ontario and around the Great Lakes area, a lot of the fish we're going to deal with are smallmouth that require fizzing. And what we do is we go through the side of the fish. And my recommendation, and this is based on some literature that I have and some information that's out there on like bassmaster.com, is you take the side of the fish, you lay it down flat, you take the pectoral fin, which is the first fin, just past the head looking down the fish. You lay that fin parallel to the lateral line of the fish. You then take your needle, and I'll count back 3 scales from the tip of the pectoral fin. Then I'm going to take the tip of the needle, go underneath the 3rd scale, and then I'm going to enter the meat of the fish, and you're actually going through the rib cage. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to take the needle and turn it almost 90 degrees.
Yep.
And slowly push down. And then if you hit the air bladder, you'll hear it. You'll hear like a tire deflating.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you don't want to squeeze too hard. You just want to relieve that pressure. And you can actually watch the fish. When a fish is... the analogy I made to some of the anglers was I had probably 150 or 200 anglers come over to me and want me to show them how to fizz. I said, picture you've had a really delicious meal, and you're really bloated, okay? And your wife passes you the Tums, and after a while you don't feel like you're all bloated anymore, all right?
Yeah.
When you fizz a bass, this happens. That bloating is gone in seconds, and you can actually, as that pressure is released, you can see almost the whole fish, which has been tense, relaxes, and your body will relax. I'm not pushing the air out. I'm allowing the air to come out on its own. So I'm fizzing this fish for about 5 to 10 seconds at the max, and then I put the fish back into a tank. What we had at the Berkley B1 was we had 3 tanks. The fish would all come to the first tank. The ones that needed fizzing go to observation tanks where I would fizz them. I put them back in the tank to make sure that they were swimming properly after they were fizzed. Mm-hmm. Once they were healthy to go back, then they were transferred to the live release boat. And I think observing those fish for a short period of time after the weigh-in helped us to ensure that they went back, because sometimes after they've been fizzed, where they fizzed enough, sometimes it's hard to, fish are shaped differently. The air bladder can be shaped differently. You may not always hit the air bladder the first time. So we want to really make sure those fish go back, because if they can't return back to the depth safely, they're going to flounder on the surface and, be the object of, hit by a boat or pecked at by seagulls.
Yeah.
And make sure those fish go back safely. So there was a lot of care taken with all the fish that came through the Berkley B1.
That's fantastic. So, was there a ratio between, and it's the darker side of these tournaments, but
Sure.
Fish released live and fish that perished, was there a number? Did you guys take a number? Or?
We had a few fish that came in, actually, that were weighed in dead, and which is going to happen in a tournament. I could probably count on two hands the number of fish that came in as a mortality each day.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't observe any mortalities of fish that were fizzed or not fizzed during the event, but I'm going to let my colleagues from the province of Quebec, I'm expecting some information from them in a few weeks once their sort of study is wrapped up to see what they found. But, we had no issues with the fish that came in. We were really blessed with good conditions. I know the weather wasn't great for the event. We had lots of rain and it was cold. That helps us manage the fish better.
Yeah.
In the whole tournament itself, the way the Berkley B1 live release system is set up is the fish are in water pretty much constantly the entire tournament. So when the anglers bring the weigh bags up to the staging area, the fish are transferred into bins. The bins are then carried up on stage. The fish are transferred into a scale that has a tank on it where the spectators could actually see the fish in the tank.
Mm-hmm.
After the fish were weighed, they were quickly carried in the air to the live release or the conservation station. From that point, they were put into large bins and sorted, and then transferred from that point to the live release boat. We also used, we had an oxygen meter. I was monitoring oxygen in all the tanks all day long, and we were using some live release formula, some U2 live release formula to help neutralize some of the nitrates and ammonia that was in the water, to help calm the fish down. We had oxygenators running in all the tanks to help maintain oxygen levels. We also had a pump with fresh lake water if we needed it to bring water back to the bins. Let's put it this way. I wore my rain suit for 2 days, and even if it was sunny, I would have been wet, because we wanted to make sure the fish were wet from the time they left the boat to the time they went back to the live release boat.
Yeah, and that's one thing that's important is when you take a fish out of water, their habitat is water, so they like to remain wet, and they have that fish slime layer, and it's a protective layer, and you want to keep them wet so that they don't lose that protective layer.
That's right. Well, and the oxygen is so key too. So for some of your listeners out there that do fish tournaments and want to know this, there's some studies done on how fast can oxygen deplete in a live release bag. So you get a weigh bag, then you and I are fishing a tournament. We put our 5 fish in the bag. We walk up to the scales. We stand there. You know the routine. Pour the fish on the scale. Weigh them. Take them back to the lake. The fish in the bag, a typical bag of fish full of water, the oxygen levels will drop to under 4 parts per million in less than 5 minutes. Once you're at that point, you can actually start to get brain damage to the fish. And this was part of the research that was done by Bruce Tufts of Queen's University. And if you think that in your head, I need to get these fish into fresh water within 5 minutes, it actually helps. I think it should help tournament directors and tournament organizations manage their fish better, because you want to minimize stress through the entire process. A lot of the stress comes from lack of water and lack of oxygen. And if you can maintain those two things through the process, that's key. And we made sure that we maintained oxygen levels greater than 6 parts per million through the event in every water apparatus, be it the scale, the weight, or the staging bins, and the sorting bins. If we drop below 6 parts per million, we fired up the big pump and brought fresh water back in from the lake. And it was a tiring process, but I was really happy to do it.
Fantastic, Jason. I just want to thank you for being one of our biologists that went there to head up the team for the B1, and like you said, something like that, and it's important because you're trying to conserve that fishery for tomorrow, literally tomorrow.
Yeah,
and
I think that I'll give a shout out to Berkley. We had a lot of the Berkley staff represented there, both from Canadian Berkley reps as well as some of the American Berkley representatives. They came up here, they support the event. A lot of money went into the event. Berkley really stepped up here. It was really impressive to see. So big shout out to them for promoting, getting some blood into an already great tournament. And let's hope that we can keep this going down the road.
Absolutely. Folks, you've been listening to Jason Barnucz. He's a Berkley Ambassador, and he's also a biologist with Canada Fisheries and Oceans. Jason, it's always a pleasure, and thank you once again for coming on the show and giving us a recap of the events for the Berkley B1.
Great. Thanks, Ben. Take care.
Take care. Ben McQuinney Outdoor Radio is brought to you by AnglersChoice.ca, the Angler's Choice in handmade soft plastics. Also presented to you by Handlebars Musky Lures, Zing the Bling, Frantic Big Game Baits, Keith Trophy Fishing, Fish NV Guide Service, and Husky Musky Leaders. You're listening to Ben McQuinney Outdoor Radio.